Hi, the Pragmatic Luther back again. Today with some information about table saws, particularly push sticks and push blocks. Before I begin, I want to recognize that there are any number of commercially made push blocks and sticks, usually I guess out of injection molded plastic, that can be had. And a lot of engineering has gone into some of these, and I'm sure they're excellent. And I don't want anyone to assume from my presentation or infer from it that I have some disapproval of those or that I'm advocating that you avoid them. But my personal experience has been for so many years that push sticks and push blocks and anything that you would use to get material safely through a table saw from time to time is going to get beat up, if not cut up, and needs to be replaced. So for me, it's always begged the question, why would I want to buy this stuff and then have to go buy more of it when I can make my own and replace it whenever I need to? I'm off camera personally because today the star of the show is the table saw and these push sticks and things. I want to start by saying that obviously we need to move material through a table saw, and we need to do it safely, and we need to keep our appendages out of the way. I personally do not use push sticks of any configuration. In fact, these I just made up just before the presentation so that I could compare what I use with push sticks. I don't care for these because while they can put a hook behind the material, they really don't have any way of guiding the material, as I see it, in a really good predetermined straight path. Plus, I'm always worried about the propensity for the blade at the back edge to apply an upward force on material, especially lighter, thinner, or shorter material. And the physics of a push stick seems to actually allow that to happen much more easily. That's the only reason I don't care for them. And I've even seen people use just the end of a scrap of wood, just grab onto this thing and guide it through. And to my way of thinking, they're just not that wise a deal. But it doesn't say that you shouldn't use them, it's just, this is my preference. I have, on the other hand, over the years, and especially since I was a shop teacher, I made these, and I still make them, and I still use them. I call them push blocks. You can call them anything you want. But the design and the configuration of these is important. And that's why I did the presentation today, because I have reasons for each one of these. The first thing, these can be made in any thickness you want them to be. If you're going to rip up a bunch of stuff that's less than 3/4 of an inch wide, you could make one that's 1/2 inch or whatever you need to do. And they can be made out of whatever scrap you have lying around, as long as it's good, stable, that is strong enough, because of that hook right there, that needs to be well attached. You can make these up out of anything you want to. What's important about these is the following. This edge right here that bears against the workpiece, that edge has to be straight because you want it to sit nice and flat on your workpiece. You need a good grip. It needs to have a hook at the rear end of it, and you notice I've got an angle there that's less than 90 degrees, the opposite direction obviously being the propensity to pull up and you'd lose your grip. So that's important that you have that. But the other thing that I found over the years very important is that this slope and this arch right here, which is a place for your hand to be, I want that to be just ahead of that hook by some distance. And I suppose the more force you feel that you need to apply out here, the farther ahead of that hook you could make that. It will get to a point, of course, where if you're out here too far, you're going to be reaching beyond the saw a little too far, and balance could be an issue. But within reason, as long as that arch is ahead of that hook, I think it gives you a little bit better chance, a better ability to guide that material through the saw safely. Now, you'll notice that I have these in different lengths. Length is not terribly important, I don't believe, but the longer this is to a point, the more grip you have out here to help hold stuff down. Obviously, a stick of this length, if I'm ripping something that's only, say, 8 inches long, we don't want that hanging out there. That might end up being something that could work against us. So length can vary. Now what about this slope out here? That's just to reduce weight. I don't think it has anything to do with safety or visibility, but it's a way to reduce weight. And I suppose if you wanted to, you could very carefully draw these out and you could sand them up and make them look real nice. You could even lacquer them if you want. But I don't, because right here, I made these today and decided to do this presentation because look at these. These push blocks of varying sizes for different purposes are all cut up. And it's going to happen. In fact, it's really a wonderful idea if you have narrow material that you're working. If that push block comes right over that blade and gets cut a little bit, that's just added protection that you've got everything covered, that you're working your material and you're operating your saw correctly. And I don't want too much over here to bear down on the waste side of the material. I don't want to keep it into the blade, but I've never seen that become a problem because that's just a fraction of an inch. But you can see how that's been cut into, and this has been, I don't know, probably a year since I've made any of these, and there's still some life left in it because this is still about 1/4 of an inch thick. I suppose if you wanted, at this point, you could take a hand plane and you could bevel that off so that it never interferes with your work. But you can see that they do get cut up all the time. Sometimes there's a need for a special push block. I've got a couple of examples here. This is a push block that I made to accommodate the shape of my guitar bridges. My guitar bridges are standardized, so I know that this is always going to work. Sometimes I need to thin a bridge blank out. And that allows me, this thing allows me to keep that bridge blank down, guide it through the saw safely. My hands are safe, and I can do accurate work on the bridge. And by the way, push blocks and all of these things are also about keeping the material moving and keeping it in its proper position while it's being cut so that it cannot move right and left or up and down on you. Another specialized block that I made is this one. And in this one, length is important. And you can see that this little hook is very shallow. It's less than 1/8 of an inch thick because I have to make these little strips of softwood. Now the grain direction in these strips is across the short distance. I'm actually ripping cross grain, and these materials are anywhere from 120 thousandths of an inch down to about 70 or 80 thousandths. So if they were allowed to flop, they're just gonna break up in the saw. So I can use that block to run that stuff through there, and you see the push block holds it down. So you can make any number of these things to accommodate your own particular needs. And I advocate doing that anytime you need to. I hope you found today's presentation useful in some way. I enjoy doing these presentations, and I hope that you'll put a like on this video and maybe subscribe to my channel. I certainly would appreciate it. And in the comments section, if you'd care to, maybe you'd like to drop a suggestion as for some other video that I might do. I'm certainly willing to if I'm qualified to do it, and if I have something that I can share, I'm willing to give it a try. Thanks again. I am the Pragmatic Luthier, Kevin Ledoux from Ledoux Guitars.